Hello everybody! So we are going live again today for yet again another incredible episode, and I really cannot wait to get this live and this podcast done today, because I'm inviting over my coach and mentor. So many people have asked me, how am I doing what I'm doing? It's because I have a coach and a mentor, and I believe that everybody, if they want to upgrade their life and become the very best version of themselves, they should have a coach and a mentor to guide them through the process to become the very best versions of themselves. So I invited my coach and mentor here today to share his incredible, wonderful words of wisdom, because he's got such an incredible story, and I'm going to get him to share it with you today. So just bear with me as I invite him up, and we're going to get rocking and rolling, people. So just bear with me. So stay tuned. Marco, how are you doing, my friend?
How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. I'm really, really good, actually. So thank you so much for coming in. I cannot wait, Marco, to share your words of wisdom, because your story is incredible. And I know that there's so many people that are going to be listening to this who could be impacted from your journey and who will want to better their lives as a result.
Great to be here, Ryan, as always, my friend. You are the epitome of a human being who's got the desire to go out and get it and go and get it, right? So that's what you've transformed into, and what life is about is being open to transformation continually to make sure that you create the life that you want, you desire, and also you create something meaningful. That's the most important thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is about having that desire. Like, your desire to change must be greater than your desire to stay the same. And for me, I stayed stuck in that comfort zone for a very long time. One job my whole life as a car mechanic, and it took me hitting rock bottom to realize, shit, I don't want this type of life, and I need to make changes. And that's when met you, I met other people. I started to invest in my own knowledge and progress, to start to progress in my life. I had to invest in myself. And I've known you for about 3 years now, Marco, and I want to say, you've been such an inspiration for me, and you've helped me along my way. So yeah, this is why I want to bring you today, because I know that you started from humble beginnings as well. So Marco, let's get into this. I want you to just explain a bit about who you are, what you do, where you come from, and what needed to happen in order to get you to the place where you are today.
Yes. So that's a lot of questions, right? So so we've all got a journey. We've all had a journey, right? So the point is that when you're on a journey, that you recognize you are on a journey. A lot of people actually don't know that. A lot of people think that they're kind of along for the ride, and they don't really think they're in control of what their outcome could be, And for a long time, I didn't know that I was in control of my outcome. I thought that I was not in the driving seat. Do you know what I mean? So a lot of my early life, was very, scary, because I didn't know where I was. I didn't even know who I was, and I think that's the same for a lot of people. It's not just me. When I was very young, when I was 2 years old, my mum left my dad. He was a gambling addict, and she had no choice. She had to leave him because she had no money, and he spent every spare penny on gambling, and it was an addiction. And my earliest memory as a baby is walking around on the carpet on newspapers, and I could smell cigar smoke and smelly feet, and it was my dad studying the form of racehorses on the weekend, right? And that was very strong. So even then, something was saying to me, this is not right. You know what I mean? So she left him, and she was 23 at the time, and it was 1970 to 70. I think it was 1970. And those were very different times. So she left him and went to live with her mum and a stepdad in the north of England. But when she got there, she was very scared to go there. But when she got there, her stepdad said it's either me or them to her mum. And her mum said, you can't stay here. And it was in January. And I wasn't old enough to understand what was going on then. I obviously wasn't, conscious of that. But what she told me was that she had to go to the park. She had to go and look for somewhere to live. She had to look for shelter, emergency shelter. And the only thing she knew to do was to go to the park and find out if she could find anything to sleep anywhere. So she found some shelter in the park, tore some branches off the freaking trees, and we slept there for a few days. And it was, we nearly died because of that. And we were taken in by strangers, ironically, at that time. But that saved our life. Now, what she didn't tell me, that she only told me, she actually only told me when she was 70 years old, is that when she was on that doorstep being turned away by a stepdad and a mum, she had been sexually abused by a stepfather for years, since she was 4 years old. And she told her family that what was going on, but they ignored her, told her she was lying and no good and all that kind of bullshit. And that really happened to her. He used to ask her mum to have baths with her when she was 4 years old and all kinds of shit like that. And in those days, the patriarch was very strong. You had to do what you were told. You couldn't go against that. So she had to survive, and she stole the key for the bathroom. She found out ways to survive in that family. But she was terrified. And when she was 12 years old, he put his hand on her breast and said, "I didn't marry you for your mum. I married your mum to get to you." So you can imagine, if you're a young lady, how terrified, a young girl, how terrified you would be of that. And she lived with that for so long because she was so scared, even though he died, obviously, later in life. Now, come back to my story, because it's twisted in that plot, in that path. We were on and off homeless. My mum wasn't educated, so I went to a lot of different schools. My mum's job was to clean houses. That's what she was good at. But, she just wasn't qualified in anything else, like secretary work, that kind of stuff. So we were very transient. We were like nomads, right? That you used to hear about now, but it's now trendy. So we were nomads, and I was going to all these different schools. And I was really, really small, and I had bright ginger hair. And I was in a different school every 2 weeks nearly. So I was always the new kid. I never got any friends, and I got bullied to shit everywhere I went. I mean, literally, I got picked on everywhere. So I would not go to school. I would skive school. I'd hide. I got really good at hiding away from pain, because as soon as I went to school, it was pain for me. There was no enjoyment at all, right? And even when I was in a classroom, I didn't enjoy that, because for me, academics was never my thing. And now I realize why I had difficulty with academics, because I got diagnosed with ADHD recently this year. And that kind of put everything, made sense for me. So I always thought as a kid that I was stupid. I always thought I was thick. I always thought that I was kind of, not bright. Do you know what I mean? So that kind of self-worth was really low. And many times as I was a kid, I didn't want to continue my life because there was so much bullying going on. And even when I went home, I was at home, but I would walk in the door and they'd be arguing, but it was so noisy. And they were shouting and throwing things at each other. And that was all the time. So I used to cry myself to sleep and all that kind of, and that just went on for years and freaking years, as long as I can remember. And then, she met my stepdad later on, who was the violent guy. He turned out to be violent. And used to, physically abuse her. And I tried to fight back, but it wasn't any good. And he was kind of nice one day, not nice the next day. So that's what it was like. That was my environment. And what I had to do is I had to survive. And if I didn't survive, I would basically kill myself. So I decided to survive, and I'd run away. One great thing was I got really good at running really fast. And I became the fastest runner in the school, and I became the Northwest National School champion because I was the fastest runner. But the only reason I was fast is because I was chased by bullies all the time. So I got really, really fast. And the other thing that I was really good at was chess, because my mum, that was one thing she learned, was chess, and she taught me chess. And that really taught me how to think strategically and how to use my mind. But even then, I didn't really think I was smart. I was just surviving. That's what I was doing. And then when I was 15, she actually met the guy she's with now. She fell in love. There's a happy ending to that. And I said, listen, go and be happy. And I will just be there on my own, and I'll survive and do what I need to do. So I went around the town and asked all the shops, could I clean the floor for like £1 an hour? And most of them said no, but some said yes. And I just blagged it. You know, I lied about my age. And but one good thing about that, because there's always something great that comes out of adversity. This is what I've learned. I got really good at cleaning floors. And I got so good that they gave me the keys to the shop. So I was to sleep in the shop. I didn't have anywhere to live. I had no money, right? And I wasn't at school anymore. I did that for quite a long time. And I saved enough money to get a place, like a room, just a room to survive in, you know. But then I got really fed up with where I was, because once I started cleaning and taking pride in what I was doing, that made me kind of dream and kind of, it didn't even know what manifesting was then, but I was actually secretly manifesting a better life than I had at the time. I thought, is this all there is? This is really crap. You know, surely there's something more than that. And at that time in my life, Ryan, there was no coaches around. There was no mentors. You couldn't go online and talk to anyone. I hadn't even read a book at that point. I'd read bits of books, but not a full book. So I had no father figure. There was no role model. There was just no one there for me. And what I found, as I listen to you all the time, is that I found out that no one was going to come for me to help me. No one was coming. And, eventually that made me realize, which is one of the biggest learning, pivots, is that I have to do this myself. And I went to Manchester and got a job in sales, selling timeshare. It was commission only. There was no salary. And it was a big risk for me, because I'd never done sales before, and I was not good at communication because I was hiding and not talking to people. I wasn't being sociable. So I was very bad at talking and communicating. But I thought, I need to do this, because I just had to change my pattern of where I was, right? So I went into this sales environment, and I was the worst salesperson literally the company had ever had in the history of the company. And I didn't sell anything at all for like weeks. I think it was about 6 weeks. And the boss said to me, Marco, he's so bad that if you don't sell in the next 2 days, we're going to fire you. Now, that was actually one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it made me change my internal dialogue. Because my internal dialogue before that was, why am I such a loser? Why can't I sell anything? Maybe I should just go and clean floors for the rest of my life, right? That's what was going on. That was the loop in my mind. But I still kept going to the sales job, because I knew that wasn't the answer, but I didn't have any resources within me to think any differently. So when I got threatened to be fired, something changed in my head, and the question changed from why am I such a loser to how can I be successful? And once I started asking that question, it became a mantra, Ryan. Do you know what that means, right?
Yeah, of course.
So this mantra, I just kept repeating the question, but I would repeat it by being louder, repetitive, and I used to walk 5 miles from my office to work every day. So I would shout it in the middle of the street. People going, "What the fuck is he doing?" But what happened was, when I started doing that, the day after, the top salesperson approached me, who'd never done that before, and he said, "Listen, Mark, I've heard that this could be your last day, and I don't want that, because I think you've got something in you. I recognize it, because I used to be you. I was homeless. I was a loser." I said, "Oh, thanks very much." He says, "No, but I was in a bad situation like you, but I turned it around because someone helped me." And then I started listening to this guy, and he was the top salesperson. So therefore, I was listening because he had my respect. He was qualified. And it's the only person in my life that was ever qualified to get me to listen to them. And once I started listening to this person, things changed. They never went back to what they were before. And he said, "I want you to go home and read a book." And he gave me the book that he read. So it got him out of the situation he was in. And I went home and read this book 8 times, didn't sleep, and it was so life-changing because it taught me about the psychology of belief. And then what was missing from my life was belief in myself. And I ran to the office, and I was so excited for the first time. I actually wanted to see a client. Before, I was afraid of seeing a client because I knew what would happen. But now things have changed for me. Things have changed because I didn't care about the result anymore. I didn't care about failure. I didn't care about getting no's. What I cared about was believing in myself. And in those days, a prospect would come in, a married couple would come in, and they'd sit down, and you'd have like a presentation with them. And this couple came in, and they were a nice couple, but they had a dog with them. And I thought, why is there a dog? And then I realized they were both blind. And the guy, that was a guide dog, right? And I'm thinking to myself, how the hell am I going to sell them timeshare when they can't even see me, let alone the holiday, right? So it was but in my new mindset, it was like, this is a test. This is a test to see how much I really want to do this, right? And that's the way I framed it. And I said to them, listen, I don't care if you don't like me. I don't care if you don't like why you're here or not. But you're going to sit there for 5 hours and you're going to love everything that I'm going to show you. And you're going to spend £10,000 with me. And they said, no, we're not. We want to go. What are you talking about? So it was like a battle, but I didn't care because I had so much enthusiasm. Whatever they said to me made me stronger. Do you know what I mean? And at the end of 5 hours, there was silence. And he fumbled in his pocket and he got his wallet out and he fumbled and got his gold credit card out. He said, Marco, you were right. There's £10,000. We absolutely freaking love this. We want to buy it. Where's the sign? Where do we sign? So that was probably the first big success of my life, the first real success of my life. And I thought, oh my God, I didn't expect you to do that. And they started laughing. They said, why? Is this your first sale? I said, this is my first ever sale. And I was like, just blown away by this. And I said to them, why did you buy from me? And they said, the reason we bought from you is because we could see something in you, in your eyes. And when you talked, there was such belief in what you were doing, you transferred your belief to us. And as soon as we believed it, we wanted it. We were there. And they spent 10 grand. And after that moment, I became salesperson of the month, salesperson of the year, salesperson of the whole group, was the youngest sales manager at 22 years old, managing people that were 45 and 50. It was insane. It was insane. And I did that for a few years and got to the top of my industry. Because of that moment, I got headhunted all over the world by different companies around the world. And I ended up going to Malaysia and I ended up spending 22 years there. But I went because it was a great opportunity and I turned it into something that was small into something really big in a few years. But it wasn't, again, it was great. It was amazing. That was the first part of my life. But then some other bad things happened, right? And things changed after that. So that's my first half of my story, Ryan. What do you think?
Wow. Listen, I've heard it before
Yeah.
and I love it. Every time you speak, Marco, I love hearing it. And I know many people would have taken a lot away from that. And I think it's absolutely incredible, not only for me, but for everyone else, to give people hope that you can say, be at rock bottom and then get yourself a goal, a vision, work towards it, and eventually become the very best version of yourself and achieve everything that you want to achieve. So I have a question, going back to almost the very start, and you said it a couple of times. I want to talk about when people hit rock bottom in their lives. Like, for instance, you said your mum, she found herself on the street with you as a young child. Like, you was at rock bottom there. You had no other option. You was desperate.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point when you was rock bottom in your job where your boss was saying, look, I'm going to fire you because you're not producing the results. So my question to you, Marco, is why do people have to wait until rock bottom to then decide, change their lives? Like, they got no other options. Is there a way for people to listen, to learn, to observe other people? Or is there a way for people to not have to hit rock bottom first to then make their life become better?
I think there is a way. But the thing is, a lot of people don't know what they want. So they don't know if they're in a bad place or not, because they're in this comfort zone, which is a complete fake environment of their own doing, because we're geared to survive and we're geared to go to comfort before we go to pain. Comfort is more enjoyable, isn't it, than pain, right? So well, most people are in this bubble, this cocoon of they think safety, but actually it's killing them slowly. It's like putting, you know, a frog in boiling water, a pan of boiling water. It will never get in the water. But if you put a frog in cold water and you turn the heat up slowly, but eventually it gets to boiling point, it will stay there and kill itself, right? Because it doesn't know what's outside. So I'm very grateful that I went through that pain, because if I hadn't have gone through that pain, there was no way that I would have changed my life. But there is really only two things, and Tony Robbins says it so well. He said, there's only two things that get you to change your direction in life. One is inspiration, and one is desperation. So when you are desperate, like you said, you've got no other option. You have to do something to change the trajectory of your life. Then you start doing something. And desperation is a fantastic trigger to move you to a different direction. The only thing is, if you keep using desperation, it's very short term. And a lot of people, for example, if they're in debt, what they do is they go to a money lender for high interest rates to get them out of the debt. But that only prolongs the problem, and then they have to pay that person back, and then it's like a cycle all over again. So the secret is to get out of desperation, but find your purpose and what you want to do. And that's the inspiration piece that I'm talking about. So for me, I really started loving sales and communication, and I saw that as a vehicle to make more money to achieve my dreams. And that's what made it for me very, very inspirational, because I was able to realize suddenly I was able to believe, oh my God, I can actually do this. I can actually take action and actually get a response. I can actually do something and make a change. I can actually take an action, and there's a ripple effect. And when I started learning that, I became a kind of magician, because whatever situation you're in, you can turn it around. You have to wave that wand metaphorically. And that waving the wand is not so making a swish like that. It's making a decision, and then it's going all in of what you have to learn to fulfill the outcome that you want. And that's what the work's about. See, a lot of people don't want to do the work. And even now, every single day, the first thing I'm doing is I'm doing content, takes me an hour. Then I'm doing learning, takes me a few hours. Then I'm going exercise and takes me so everything I do is obsessive for what I want to do. And that is really what shaped the mindset I've got now, because it doesn't matter what point in life you are. If you give up and say, that's it, life's over, you know? A lot of people that retire die very soon after retiring because they've got no purpose. They've got nothing to do anymore. So therefore they lead this kind of sedentary life, and they die quicker because they're not doing anything physically. They're not doing anything mentally to stimulate them to actually keep going and keep growing, because we never stop growing. And the day we stop growing is the day we choose to. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, that was brilliant. And look, I totally agree with you, Marco. Like, without purpose, people perish. Like, if no one's got a purpose to get up in the morning, they're just going to drift through life doing bullshit things that bring them no sense of joy, meaning, purpose, or fulfillment.
Yeah.
And they're going to be so unhappily happy, just convincing themselves that everything's okay and things are going to get better. And one day this will happen. Like, it's either one day or day one. Like, you need to make that decision, because it's in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. Like, you need to choose, no, I don't want this life that I'm currently living because I don't enjoy it. You need to make the solid decision and then take those action steps in order to move you closer towards, say, your potential desired destination. But you need to first know where you want to head, because you could be going 1,000,000 miles per hour in the wrong direction. So get clear on exactly where it is that you want to go, and then start taking those action steps and learn from other people along the way. But I want to actually talk about something that I've heard you again mention a couple of times, which is belief. I hear you keep saying the word belief quite often. So can you tell me, for someone that potentially doesn't believe in themselves and they're listening to this today, how can someone build belief in themselves to actually go on to achieve their dreams?
Yeah, it's probably the greatest question that we ask ourselves, because the belief system is the only way that we progress and take actions, because we know that if we take an action, we're going to get a reaction. So a belief system is where you have a core within you as a being. For example, if you didn't believe you could raise your left hand, you wouldn't raise your left hand. It's a mind. It's a mind. It's all in the mind. But the mind is connected to the heart, and you've got to feel it. So a belief system is built by you doing something and failing and responding with the response, well, okay, I failed. So you could either say, well, I don't really believe I can do it, or how can I learn from this failure and actually make a different action? That's a belief. So you either believe you can't do it, or you believe you can do it. Either way, you're right. Now, to build up a belief system, you have to start doing small things and getting quick wins to build up your self-worth. And your self-worth is based on how you love yourself. Now, this is not an easy thing to do. And I didn't say it was easy, because, you've got a lot of adversity out there. You've got people telling you can't do it. You've got your peer group not doing it and telling you can't do it. You've also got your peer group telling you, oh, don't worry, it's not worth it. You'll be okay not doing that and just stay where you are, right? But as you know, Tony Robbins is, I'll quote him again. The quality of your life is a direct reflection of the expectations of your peer group. So I'll repeat that. The quality of your life is a direct reflection of the expectations of your peer group, meaning the environment you spend most time in is what you will become. So if the environment that you're in is not cultivating the place where you want to be, clearly you have to change your environment. And I can tell you 9 times out of 10, that's the people you hang around with, right? The people that we hang around with, and, I've learned the hardest ways, and I've trusted so many wrong people, and I've trusted with money and all kinds of stuff like that, and it's backfired on me. But I've learned the lesson, but it took me a while, because when you're with family that are very close to you, when you're with friends or girlfriends, boyfriends, partners, sometimes you listen to them and you trust their advice, but actually it's not the advice that you need. And what happens is you sabotage yourself unconsciously, because they don't want you to leave their environment. Now, there are clear signs where you are actually in the wrong environment with the wrong people. The first sign is that if you're in a room where you know the most, you're in the wrong freaking room. You're never going to grow. You'll never, ever grow. Secondly, if you've got friends that are not kind of being positive about your work and achievements, they're kind of playing it down, get rid of them. If the friends there that are always talking about your past, that's a red flag. So you've got to choose to do that. Now, you went to South America, so there you go, right? You made a choice. I moved out of relationships. I now live on my own. And the reason I do that is not because I don't believe in relationships. It's because I have to be in my own for the place I am now to grow to the level I want to get to. Yes, I have relationships, but I don't live with someone. That's just me right now, but that's the stage of my life. I've lived with people before. Now, coming back to the question of belief, well, belief is only inner work. It's never on the outside. But the inner work of belief is actually, the internal dialogue has got to be one of where you ask questions. How can I reach my goals? What do I need to do? Why am I here? What is my purpose? What am I here to do? You have to ask those questions to yourself and believe that you will get the answers. It's like a lot of people believe in God is fucking invisible, right? So, you know, people say, well, he can't see, it's not, you know, there's no such thing. So there are people that don't believe in God. There are people that believe in God. There are people that believe in a kind of similar thing, the universe, all that kind of stuff, right? But it's actually what we can't see, which is the most powerful thing in the universe, isn't it? And that is basically the energy that we are made of, and that's the physical universe, and that the vibration and frequency of how we actually operate. Because positive people operate at a higher frequency, bad negative people are very low frequency. So we have to understand how we operate and really understand, you know, take time to understand ourselves and work on ourselves. And one of the best ways to start believing in yourself is by learning from other people that that used to be you. That is the quickest way. So read books of biographies of people that were similar to you and achieved what they achieved because they made certain steps and they started believing in themselves. You've got to go to events. You've got to go to communities that cultivate growth. You've got to go and, you know, get a coach who has got what you want, which most people don't do because they think it's too expensive. But actually, it's not. It's the most economical way to grow, because if you think about university education, it's like £250,000, you know, and people still paying a student loan back in the fucking 50s, and they haven't got what they want. So if you think about wanting to get what you want, the quickest way is by someone teaching you how to do it, because they've already got it. A lot of people don't do that. They pay people that haven't got what they want. You know, so a lot of it is common sense. And the reason a lot of people don't have common sense is because we are conditioned to have uncommon sense and be slaves from a very early age. Your parents were not taught to be self-sufficient and financially free. They were not taught to do that. They come from generations where money was the root of all evil as the narrative, where there's not a lot of money around, where you have to go and get a job, where you have to go to school and behave yourself and listen to the teachers and listen to this and that. Fuck that. You know, the one thing I did realize was that the teachers at my school were not very prosperous. They weren't driving nice cars. They weren't exactly wearing nice clothes, Ryan. You know, and I noticed that. And when I was in class, I noticed that the dogma of you have to do it this way or you will not pass your exams had no fucking relevance to the outside world at all. But if you went against the system, you got punished. Well, if you don't come to school, you'll be expelled. You never get a job. You do this, you do that. So it's like a medieval fucking way to get you to do stuff that is not necessarily right for you. And a lot of people think that they're not sovereign, and sovereign means that you're independent. You are sovereign, because I'm talking to the people that have been through life a bit now, and you've probably realized, oh fuck, this is up to me now. There's no one else there. I've got to do this shit, right? But the magic of belief is that when you believe in yourself and you truly believe it, no matter what, that this will happen, then you start taking actions towards that goal and manifestation, and it's a kind of a way of prayer. And prayer is a magical thing. You don't have to believe in God to have prayer, because when you pray, the science is your vibration and frequency increases. Your brain waves change and increase, and actually they go at the frequency of what you're trying to attract. And that's why they say like attracts like. You know, it's kind of magnetic. And the reason you don't get what you want, it's kind of up and down, is because you have what I call a fractured belief system, where you kind of sabotaging it all the time, because you're listening to people that don't have what you want. You're looking at things like fucking TV on the news all the time, which is, I mean, every time you turn on the news, oh, someone's been murdered and they've lost their dog, and that someone had an accident, and the government says this, and they're going to increase the taxes. There's nothing positive in TV. It's all escapism. It's either bad news or you have to escape it and watch a film. And that's why Hollywood is so successful, because they know that you have to escape. Right? Do you get what I mean?
Absolutely incredible, and I couldn't agree more with everything you said there. You said so much about the belief, about the surroundings, everything. It was absolutely incredible, and it's so true. Like, to just there where you was about the news. Like, the news for me, I haven't watched TV for years. Like, it's so shit. I don't watch movies. I don't watch news. Like, if you think about it, the news, when the news channel comes on, it straight away goes don don don, the big sound, and then it captures you with, like you say, dog died because a man bit it. Like, these crazy opening stories, and it gets you hooked. And naturally, your brain wants to complete that circle, that cycle.
Yeah.
So it keeps you hooked to this shit, and you're constantly chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing. A quickest way to go unhappy is to watch the news for an hour, or to scroll social media for half an hour. So you need to be cautious and aware of what you're consuming, because you become what you both consciously and unconsciously consistently consume, because your mind is like a factory, and the ingredients that you're putting into it will be used to make the final product, which is your fucking life.
Yeah.
So surround yourself with positivity, whether this is books, people, or online content. So Marco, I want to ask you then, people that say, have listened to this today, listen to your words, and they want to change their lives. They've maybe got negative surroundings. They've got potentially parents that are putting them down, friends that are not really supporting them in their dreams, etc. What are maybe like the first couple of steps for someone to begin today? Like, someone's really confused, unsure. Their mind is just like so much pressure in their mind because they don't know what they're doing, but they know that they want to change their lives to become better. What would be maybe the first couple of steps to get the ball rolling?
Well, to get the ball rolling, you have to make a decision that you want to change, that you want to do something different. You know, progress is only made by breaking existing patterns that don't serve you. So you have to have a realization, this is not serving me. Otherwise, you won't make a change. If you think, well, maybe this is serving, maybe it's not, you're not going to make a change. And you can't help, and I can't help people like that, right? Because they're not ready. It's like you have to be called to take an action. And this is the hero's journey. A hero wakes up when they realize that they have a calling to do something bigger than they are. And the first step is to actually dream and use your imagination of actually envisioning what you would like your life to be. Because the first thing is, you've got to know your fucking outcome. You've got to know what the outcome you want for your life is. And the first step is always going within. It's not going out. It's going within your mind. You know, I learned that, you know, at 5 years old, I was looking out the window pretending to be James Bond. And I ended up making a fucking spy film and made more spy films because of that vision I had. So that made a massive impact on me because it imprinted on my mind, because I lived in that vision. That was my escape, and I loved that environment. So you've got to have a vision where you really love being there, and then you've got to become a match for it. You've got to do the work to be a match for it. And you've got to realize that you are your greatest resource to be able to achieve that. That your parents are not going to do it for you. Your teachers are not going to do it for you. Your boss is not going to do it for you. Your girlfriend, boyfriend, partner is not going to do it for you. And then you've got to realize that actually the help is actually out there, because the evidence proves that everybody that's made a big name for themselves started from fucking zero. So hang on a minute. If they're doing it and they've done it and had the same problems as me, what the fuck is wrong with me? Why can't I do that? And that's the kind of realization and kind of attitude that you've got to have. Look at the evidence. Look at the evidence. People that don't take action, stay in work, lose the job, just keep the mortgage, are the victims of society, are the victims of government decisions, are the victims of bank interest rates, because they decide to be passive and not take the action they can. You know, pretty much most property millionaires start from zero. It's only the burning desire that gets them out there to actually do it. And once you get your first successes, you look back at your life and why the fuck did I not do that sooner? That's the regret you have, right? But you know, first of all, you've got to see what you want. You've got to know your outcome, and then you've got to know why. You've got to know why. Why is it so meaningful to you? What's it going to mean for you when you actually do that? What emotions are you going to feel? Because the emotion triggers you to take action. The meaning of it attached to the emotion makes you take so much action and never give up, because you want to have that feeling in your life. But to get that feeling, you have to dream, imagine, envision, and start living in your mind first like that before taking those actions. And just the first step, like reading a book from someone that's got what you want, is the first step after that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, it just keeps reminding me of what you mentioned earlier about only taking the advice from the people who are qualified, which you mentioned. Because I remember for me as well, like there was a time in my life where I was desperate. I was acting from a place of desperation, where I would go down to the local pubs and any fucking pisshead, any bloke, any woman, I would just ask them for their advice on what I should do with my life. And I got the same old shit. Get yourself a girlfriend, get a mortgage, get a
Yeah,
secure job.
yeah,
Exactly the same bullshit,
yeah,
because these people were doing the same with their lives. Like, never ask someone for directions to a place that they've never been before. Like, you need to ask people that have either been there and achieved a result, or who are on the way already, who are maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead of you. You don't need to ask someone that's already achieved it. Someone that's 2 steps ahead of you, you can follow them for guidance as well. Like, for instance, so many of us are just listening to bullshit advice from parents, people around us, society, the news, social media, how to achieve our dreams. You're never going to do it. You need to be very cautious of the people that you listen to. Like, never ever take advice from someone who you would not happily trade places with. So yeah, for me, that's just ingrained it in my mind again about people really being cautious of who they take their advice from. Because if you don't, you're going to listen to someone, and the worst advice that you can ever take in life is the wrong
yeah.
advice.
Especially when you're emotionally invested in that person, right? Because when you're emotionally invested, it's death to growth. You've chosen them over you, right? And that's the worst sacrifice, because that is a toxic sacrifice. And that's one sacrifice I've made too often. I'm not willing to fucking do that ever again. So for me, I'm never willing to go into a relationship where they say to me, well, perhaps you shouldn't do that. If that happens, it's game over. And that's why I'm very, very, very careful of who I invest my time. But emotional investment, that's your life we're talking about right now, right? And it will cost you your life if you venture into that. What you've got to learn is that you've got to trust, you've got to invest in the mind to manage the emotions. If you let the emotions manage the mind, you're fucked. Because emotions are irrational, right? The mind is rational, and it becomes more rational once you start programming it by learning what you need to learn, and then attaching the emotions to actually you know make the actions that are necessary. Attaching the emotions. Oh, I've done this today. Wow, I feel so good about that. Gratitude. I've actually done something. Because here's the deal. Your DNA is programmed to make you depressed when you're not progressing. So I think perhaps we should listen to our fucking DNA. It's not stupid. And this is the reason a lot of people are depressed. It's because they're not progressing. And progress is the ultimate happiness drug there is. So you've got to be obsessed with fucking progress as your absolute number one action that you need to take and embrace. Progress is everything. Just going to the gym for an hour is progress. Reading one line or reading a quotation and learning a lesson from it is fucking progress. It doesn't have to be suffering. It doesn't have to be suffering. A lot of people think, oh, I have to suffer to progress. No, you don't. You have to sacrifice what will not serve you in the future. That's not suffering. That's short-term pain. Right?
Very wise words, and it's so true. Like, progress equals happiness. And I remember for me in my life as well, like that time when I say hit rock bottom, had to sell my house, lost my girlfriend, had to move back in with my parents. I wasn't progressing, and because of that, I was depressed. I was focusing all of my energy in the past, which caused me to be
Yeah.
depressed. And then I went to extreme anxiety where I was focusing way in the future. But once I grounded myself and just said, right, what the fuck do I want? Where am I right now? Focus on being present, and then started to take action steps towards the future that I wanted. I was progressing and I was happy. And like you say, people think, oh, progress is like these huge leaps. Like, for instance, going to like a different country, packing up everything, changing your job tomorrow, for instance. No, that isn't the case. Like you mentioned, Marco, read a quotation, go for a walk, go for a run, eat a healthy meal, something like that. It's just a progress, and these small things eventually compound on top of each other. And it's always the small things that always become the big things. So don't feel like you have to do these ginormous things, because you become overwhelmed then, and you end up doing nothing.
Yeah.
So Marco, now I want to just say, as we're sort of wrapping this up now, if you're happy to go ahead, I have 5 quick questions that we can get into.
Go ahead. Knock it out, man.
Okay, brilliant. So number 1 question is, what is the best piece of advice that you have ever received, and why?
These are not quick questions, mate. Best piece of advice I've been given so much advice. But I would think it would be trust yourself, right? And why? Because if you don't trust yourself, you can't take an action. You'll second guess it all the time. So trusting yourself is all about getting over doubt. I mean, what did William Shakespeare say? Our doubts are our traders, right? Which is true. So trusting myself has enabled me to understand that I am the power I need to be to get what I want. Is that I can be the magician, and I can turn any bad situation into, I'm the alchemist. So if you've read Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist, which I only read 2 weeks ago, matter of fact, right? Because I could never get into it before. Could never get into it, but it's an amazing book. But it's just a very simple lesson that everything you want is within you. You don't have to go to the pyramids of Egypt to find stuff. Everything's within you. You are the alchemist. You can turn lead into gold. And I've been able to do that, but only when I decided to trust myself. And that's when the magic truly happens. Next question.
Next question is, what is the worst piece of advice that you have ever received and acted on, and what was the result?
Okay. The worst piece of advice I got, I think, let me think about this. I think it was, marriage. It was like, go back to my marriage and work on it, and even through bad times, keep working on it. And the reason it was bad advice was because I knew I was with the wrong person. Now that would be good advice if you were with the right person, but here's the deal, Ryan. You shouldn't have to keep working on a fucking marriage to make it survive. It should grow on its own accord, because you are right for each other and you're growing individually, but you're also growing together. Most marriages are not based on that. Most marriages are based on one of you is growing more than the other, and one of you blames the other for that in the relationship, and it becomes toxic. So that was the worst piece of advice, because I stayed in the relationship way too long, because I was in an encultured, conditioned paradigm that if I worked on a marriage, I'd be a better person. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
But also, that for me, that also goes back to the previous question that you said about trusting yourself.
Yeah.
That you could link that together. Like you should have just
Absolutely.
trusted yourself in that moment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. But at that time, that encultured, conditioned program looped before I loved myself, because I was, from a very early on childhood, I was in a place where I was so unhappy and I couldn't please anyone, including my, the parents I didn't have, that I turned my adulthood into a validation to be good. So I was a people pleaser.
Okay,
And
so
that's what
This
Yeah.
leads on to my next question then. What is the main thing that you had to unlearn whilst growing up?
I had to unlearn that pleasing other people would help me. I had to learn that I had to love myself first and serve other people. Different ball game, right? So it meant that I had to unlearn to be nice to people, and you know, basically to get love, I would be nice to people even though I didn't want to do it, but to please them. I had to unlearn that.
Very, very important.
Yeah.
So the next question then would be, what is the greatest lesson that you learned from your most painful life experience?
I guess it's a similar answer, really. You know, because I've had many painful experiences. I've attempted suicide, right? So I think the attempted suicide was that it's never over, and you can fight whatever adversity it is, and you can prevail. That's the lesson I learned. Even despite that, you might think life's over. It's never fucking over, and you've got to realize you're so powerful. A lot of people don't realize they have that much power because they give their power away to authority in the system, government. So, for example, once upon a time, there was a stage where the government was serving us. We elected the government to basically execute our wishes, right? Now, we are serving the government's demands. We don't have a say anymore. You know, the UK government is not elected. It's not democratically elected, and it doesn't matter what government's in right now. They're all the fucking same anyway. You know, we're going to raise the taxes. No reason. Oh, okay. We're going to do net zero by 2030. Oh, no, we're going to change mine now. We're going to be longer than that. Oh, no, we're going to change mine now. Oh, we're going to do loans from the pandemic, and we're going to give contracts to politicians. You don't mind, do you? Okay. You know, that kind of stuff. So we have to realize that we are in control of our sovereign state and also in control of our future. We can overcome anything. And if you look at the history of humanity, we have overcome everything, right? And as individually, we need to believe in that again.
So, knowing what you know now, what is the best one piece of advice that you could give to your younger self?
Knowing what I know now, the one piece of advice I would give to my younger self would be the same advice always to anybody, really. And that is, you can have it all. Start the work now, because I've already done it, but I wish I'd done it sooner.
Wow, brilliant. So, before we end this, Marco, I have a bonus question as well. What is the best thing about being Marco Robinson?
The best thing about being Marco Robinson is that whatever I dream I want, I achieve always. You know, and I just keep proving to myself, fuck, how the fuck did I do that? But actually done it. So I give a very recent example, right? So not many people know that I've been learning to sing for 2 years, right? And when I told people, they didn't actually believe me. And then I went to a songwriting retreat in Ireland 2 weeks ago, and with 20 musicians, producers, songwriters, singers, completely out of my depth. But I knew I could sing, and I knew I could write. And I was able to co-write a few songs that were submitted to the Eurovision Song Contest. Oh my God, right? And I produced my first song for my new musical, Legacy of Spies, which people didn't believe I was doing. And when I shared the song to the people that didn't quite believe it, but kind of believed it, but didn't really understand, because I'm coming from a business background, they said to me, Marco, I keep listening to that song. Is that you singing? Is that you singing? Famous people. And I said, yes. I said, fucking hats off. You are an unbelievable singer. Now, when you get that I wasn't looking for validation. It wasn't validation I was looking for. I was looking for a professional opinion. That's a very different thing. And when I got that feedback, it made me again realize, fuck, you can do anything you want to do. So that's the great thing about being me. I can do fucking anything I want to do, right? Because the evidence is proving it. Do you know what I mean?
Wow. Marco, thank you so much for being here, my friend. And there's so much that can be taken away from today. And so many people have been here and so many people will listen back to this as well. So I just want to say thank you so much for being here today, my friend. And it's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to carrying on my journey with you as my mentor and coach, like we've been speaking about today, because I've learned so much from you and you are an absolute inspiration to me and many around the world as well. So before we leave today, Marco, how can people follow your journey, get to know more about you, and connect with you on a deeper basis?
Well, the first point of that is just to go to my Instagram and just follow my journey, because I post daily, and that's my diary, but also what I do for my businesses and stuff like that. So that's the first point. And when you see that, you'll decide if you want to work with me closer, or be in a closer proximity, because that's what people sometimes do. Yeah.
And briefly, just talk as well, just for the people here listening, you mentioned books and movies as well. Just talk us a little bit about your books and movies as well, if you can.
Yeah, so I've written 2 books. The first book I wrote is called Close the Deal and Suddenly Grow Rich, which is a book about sales and persuasion. It's a very good book. I mean, it's difficult to tell you that when you're the author, but I'll just give you, I like to tell you what other people say about it, right? So one of my publishers said, someone asked my publisher, is Marco that good at writing books? And he said, yeah, he's that good. In fact, this book is so good that I would put this book in the realm of Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, Getger, and I believe his books will be go-to legend sales and communication books for everyone for the rest of their lives. So there you go. Now, that was a #1 bestseller. The second book I wrote was called The Financial Freedom Guarantee, which is a 10-step retirement plan to buy-to-let property and basically replace your salary within a couple of years. Now, that plan has worked for everyone that's pretty much read the book and executed it. And again, that became a #1 bestseller. But that's the book to buy now, because we're coming into the real estate cycle where prices are going down. In fact, this month the least sales have been made on houses for the last 15 years. That's an incredible stat, right? And the book I'm writing now is called How to Be a Hero in Real Life. Are you prepared to die to live your dream? So that's really my memoirs, but also my life experience, and basically teaching you about the way that I do stuff and how I negotiate life and work on it and capitalize and thrive. So yeah, the films, well, Legacy of Lies is, of course, my marquee film that went to #2 in Netflix USA, debuted. That's a spy thriller. I've got 43 films in distribution with Joanne Butcher, my film partner, 180 in development, loads of films. Just follow my film channel, Marco Robinson Film, for all that information. Yeah.
Fantastic. And finally, people may be curious about, you said about your singing journey.
Yes.
When can people expect to hear you, or where can they find you with your singing?
Yeah, so my singing name is Marco DeBeau. That's my artist name. And I'll be doing my first live performances in October. So imminently you'll see me singing. My musical will be out next year at some point. And, I'm writing that now, developing that. So that's the answer to that question, yeah.
Amazing. I'm so excited, Marco, and thank you again, my friend, for being here. I've really, really enjoyed this episode. And again, I just say it, there's so much that can be taken away for everybody who's going to listen to this. So just thank you so much, my friend. And everybody that's been here today as well, thank you so much for coming on. And I look forward to seeing you all on the next live. Marco, is there anything else that you wanted to mention before we go?
Yeah, I just want to say, keep following Ryan. He is an unbelievable, amazing human being. His energy, his focus, his purpose, his love for himself and other people, his wanting to serve other people is incredible. And Ryan's going to go all the way. So stay with him on that journey and, be inspired by what he's doing. For someone to leave everything in England and go to South America for God knows how long, maybe the rest of his life and the next life, it takes a lot of courage to do that, right? And our lives is not about having courage. It's basically being in a place where you need to do something. And it's being confident to have the courage that it's going to turn out well. But it won't go well all the time. That's part of the journey. But you've got to love that, because that's the lesson. And we've got to frame the bad times as the learning. And when we do that, then it becomes the best thing you'll ever do in your life.
Yeah, again, I could not agree more. So, Marco, I just want to say thank you so much for your kind words, my friend. I really appreciate all the support you've given me over the years. And yeah, I look forward to carrying on this journey with you and everybody else that's been here today. Thank you so much. And I'm going to see everybody on the next live. So bye for now. Thank you. And we'll speak soon, everybody.
Thank you, buddy. Take care, Ryan.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.